Well, after that very professional presentation by James, fasten your seatbelts because it's going to get a little rocky now. But our number one probation chief in the state here is going to pull us out of the hole after I get finished. You know, I've learned a long time ago when I present to groups like this that are diverse and I'm talking about prison realignment to wear my uniform, my bulletproof vest, and to come armed, because if I need to make a quick escape, I want to have some level of protection. But I will share with you that if 50 or more of you in business attire are chasing me down the streets of Sacramento because I said something politically incorrect or off base, someone's going to see you chasing a uniformed officer at some point and come to my rescue. So I feel some level of safety there. You know, we heard Linda Pinner talk about 58 different models, and at first that seemed like a very odd concept. The truth is, this whole prison realignment system was designed to have 58 different models. So what works for my county might not work for your county, and it really depends on what your local community expectations are. We had to assess the level of our PRCS population, the numbers coming to our county, the sophistication of criminality that they have that we didn't have before, the community makeup that's in our county, and the political backdrop of our county. And I'll start with that. Placer County, for those of you that don't know where it's at, is northeast of Sacramento. It extends from the Sacramento County line all the way to Lake Tahoe. So geographically, it's a very large county. It's about 360,000 people live there. It's some of their pockets are more affluent, and it's a very diverse county, but not as diverse as many of yours. So we had to come to the conclusion of what's best in Placer County. And so what we're going to talk about today is just one piece of our program, and it's the supervision piece. So I don't want you to think that our model's lacking programs and other pieces that yours do, because we're just talking about a very myopic piece of our program. In Placer County, the criminal justice system has always historically been very collaborative in our approach to working with each other. We have 4 police chiefs, the sheriff, the DA, probation chief, the court system, our public defender, Ken Haas, who's here, have always maintained a very positive working relationship, and the entity that stepped onto our criminal justice system stage is HHS, and I'm pleased to say that they now are a very strong partner and ally for us in the criminal justice system. In Placer County, we have what's called the Special Investigations Unit. It's a county-wide task force comprised of officers from all of our law enforcement agencies, the district attorney's office, and the probation department. The historical mission of the Special Investigations Unit, or SIU, has always been exclusively narcotics enforcement. In December of 2011, the state of California collapsed many of the narcotic task forces throughout the state and discontinued funding. Placer County, unfortunately, was one of those task forces that got collapsed. So local law enforcement had to make a decision of whether we were going to keep our SIU unit intact or not, and we decided to do just that. So despite lack of state funding to ensure narcotics enforcement, we decided to continue to make narcotic enforcement a top priority. Further, the SI unit has been utilized for more than just narcotics unit in Placer County. We use them for our undercover operation. A small agency like mine in Rocklin, we have 60,000 people in Rocklin. I don't have the resources to have undercover officers that you might imagine. You think Hill Street Blues, or looking at the demographics in this room, maybe Adam 12 might be more appropriate to jog your memory. But tell me when I need to run, Marshall. I don't have the resources to have undercover narcotic officers in my department. I just don't have the funding for that. So SIU became that for us. So if I need to do surveillance on a case or use them to execute a search warrant, that's our extended family in Placer County as SIU. When we put together our CCP, our probation chief did an outstanding job of coordinating our local CCP for our county. We didn't all understand the full magnitude of what realignment meant. In fact, we didn't even realize our own roles in the CCP, so we had to get through that clunkiness at the first initial steps. And many of you that were on your CCPs understand what I'm talking about, because you throw 7 people in the room and a pocket of money in the middle of the room and say, okay, here's your objectives, and it's not enough money, so figure it out. That could be an ugly picture. And it was a little clunky for us at first. But even through it all, we didn't all agree. We had many discussions and meetings, and our CCP came to the conclusion that we had to work collaboratively together. We had to find the best solution for our 360,000 people in Placer County. We weren't really concerned about what the rest of you were doing. We were concerned about what we were doing, and that kept our focus local. We had two objectives: keep our community safe and reduce recidivism. And a lot of credit goes to our Placer County District Attorney and our probation chief for crafting the details of our CCP plan, and frankly, to our judges who insisted that we were going to have 100% support for our plan. And so we're going to work out the details in this room until we all came to agreement, and that's exactly what happened, and our judges were a big component of that. With the state pulling out of the SIU by defunding its participation gave us a lot more latitude in what we could do with our Special Investigations Unit. So we decided to expand the SIU mission to not only include narcotics enforcement and the surveillance work that I talked about, but also to assist and work with probation in the supervision of our post-release community supervision population. This model has since been developed to include the population who are considered the highest risk by our probation department. The program has been so successful that we now include those persons who are not only the PRCS high-risk offenders, but also the probation high-risk offender caseload as well. This has allowed our probation department to focus more quality attention on the high to medium risk population, which is where we dedicate the focus and the bulk of our CCP resources and attention on. We want to reach and change behavior to those that can receive counseling and discontinue a reoffending. The objective to transform offenders away from a life of crime and into productive members of our society. A PCRS offender, this is a story now. We had a PCRS offender who was released from Placer County in June of 2012. He served 2 years of prior prison terms, sustained 3 parole violations, and was released from CDCR as a PRCS case after serving 2 years. His prior history included burglary, possession of stolen property, and possession of a controlled substance, auto theft, assault with a deadly weapon, and a felon in possession of a firearm. Upon his arrival in Placer County, he was assessed as a high-risk assessment for treatment by our practitioners and directed to appropriate treatment program to address his criminogenic needs. Based on his risk score, his criminal history, and his behavior in CDCR, he was placed directly onto our SIU caseload and for intensive supervision and services. The SIU team conducted numerous home contacts, searches, and drug tests while the practitioners continued to provide direction and support. During his term of supervision, he actually earned his way off of our SIU caseload to a lower level of supervision. He was married and obtained a stable housing and employment. In June of 2013, he successfully completed his term of supervision, and during the final contact with his probation officer, indicated that he was thankful for our support with his new life and his new family. Approximately 5 weeks after his PRCS termination, the subject listed his probation officer as a reference on a job application, and the officer was contacted, and the subject now obtained a new job and relocated out of our area. So that's a story to share with you that our SIU unit, while supervises our high-risk caseload, we really encourage and work to get them off of our caseload by means of positive direction in their lives. Our SIU and probation department meet monthly to strategize on our caseload and to understand our new PRCSs coming to our county. They develop strong relationships and keep the information flowing for better communication. Those offenders on the SIU high-risk caseload are supervised in such a way that they are encouraged to work their way off of the high-risk caseload by compliance with their terms and conditions. We've had many experiences with high-risk offenders working their way off of the SIU caseload to a more traditional probation caseload, where they can receive more resources, services, and treatment. So when we first created the SIU model, as you can imagine, it was a collision of philosophies. You had probation officers who were designed, and typically their mission was to supervise, get them to the right resources, the right systems that they need, and to supervise them through their probation. Then you've got the police officer, whose mission was to investigate crimes, apprehend offenders, and get that case to court for successful prosecution and work with the DA's office. So these two opposing philosophies in our SIU model came together. And it wasn't easy at first, but what we've learned is that having a collaborative approach and understanding each other's roles better, understanding at the 30,000-foot level what's best for our county, helping to create productive members of society and changing criminal behavior is better for all of us. So if the police officer is catching bad guys out on the streets, if the jail has no beds, and that guy that you really need to be in jail can't go to jail because the jail is full, it doesn't serve any purpose. So with these mindsets, we really started to come together collaboratively and work with our SIU model on our philosophies. They both have a better understanding of each other's roles and responsibilities, and together, our Special Investigations Unit and probation set a positive tone for Placer County's realignment efforts. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I turn it over to the state's best Chief Probation Officer, Marshall Hopper.